All right, in this video, I'm going to write a polynomial from zeros. So we're going to be provided zeros, and we want to go back to writing the polynomial. So kind of the opposite process of what we've been doing. So zeros I have 2 and 1 plus square root of 2. But there's actually 3 zeros here, but you only see 2 written. Because you have to keep in mind, whenever we take the square root of something, so like if I wanted to take the square root of 16, we always get plus or minus 4. Same thing here. When you have the positive square root, you also need the negative. You can't have one without the other. So I'm going to have 2 and 1 plus square root of 2. I also need 1 minus square root of 2. So you can't have one without the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my zeros and I'm going to convert them back to factors. So if I have 2 as a 0, I'm going to have x minus 2 as the factor. And then if I have 1 plus square root of 2, I'm going to have x minus, I'm going to put in parentheses, 1 plus square root of 2. Then for this other piece, 1 minus square root of 2, I'm going to have x minus, parentheses, 1 minus square root of 2. So those are my 3 factors. Now what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to worry about this x minus 2, not going to worry about that till the very end. I'm just going to deal with these 2 factors here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have parentheses inside of them. I kind of want to get rid of that. So this negative with this factor is going to distribute through. So I'm going to have x minus 1, because I distribute negative times the 1. And then negative times the square root of 2 is a negative square root of 2. Same thing over here. I'd like to distribute that negative. So a negative times 1 is minus 1. A negative times a negative square root of 2 is a positive square root of 2. All right. So I have the parentheses gone there. I still need to multiply these 2 together. So I have 3 terms over here. 1, 2, 3 over here, and 1, 2, 3 over there. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a whole bunch of distributing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this x and distribute it through everything over here. And I'm going to take the negative 1, distribute it through. The negative square root of 2, distribute it through. As I write out my multiplication, what I'm going to do down here is vertically, I'm going to line up like terms. So only things that are like terms are going to be lined up vertically. So I'm going to start with distributing x. So I'm going to do x times x, which is x squared. Then I'm going to do x times negative 1. So since it's a different term, negative 1x. So I'm going to start 2 columns there for x squared and 1 for my x's. And then I'm going to take x times the square root of 2. So we don't really know how to multiply that. So that is a positive times a positive. So we're going to have a positive x square root of 2. I'm just going to leave it like that. Next, I'm going to take this negative 1 and distribute it through. So negative 1 times x is negative 1x. I'm going to line it up with my plain old x over here. And then negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. I'm going to line that up down here, plus 1. And then negative 1 times a positive square root of 2. So a negative times a positive square root of 2 is a negative square root of 2. Only thing left to do is we have a negative square root of 2, so I'm going to distribute that through. Negative square root of 2 times x. So a negative times a positive, that's going to be a negative x square root of 2. So notice how I'm going to line it up with this one. So negative x square root of 2. Negative square root of 2 times a negative 1. A negative times a negative is a positive square root of 2. Notice how I lined it up with my other square root of 2. And then a negative square root of 2 times a positive square root of 2. A negative times a positive is going to be a negative. And whenever you have square roots there, you can multiply the inside. So I'm going to do 2 times 2, which is 4. So I have a square root of 4. Now what I can do there is I'm going to draw a line, and I'm just going to add and subtract straight down vertically. So I'm going to have an x squared, and then I have negative 1x minus 1x. Negative x and negative x is negative 2x. Positive x squared root of 2 and a negative x squared root of 2. Those are opposites of each other because we have a positive and a negative of the same thing. So that's going to be 0, so I'm going to cross that out. I have a plus 1 that comes down. And then I have a negative square root of 2 and a positive square root of 2. So a negative and a positive, the same thing. Again, those are going to equal 0, so those are gone. And then I have this negative square root of 4. Well, I'm going to simplify that really quick. So square root of 4 is 2. And then I have the negative there, so I have a minus 2. So what I have is x squared minus 2x plus 1 minus 2. So when I combine like terms, I'm going to have x squared minus 2x plus 1 minus 2 is negative 1. So all of that just to multiply those two factors together. Only one step left to do is, remember that x minus 2 we covered at the beginning? That's still in play, so we still have to multiply everything through by x minus 2. So hopefully at this point it becomes a lot easier, so you're just going to take x, distribute it through, negative 2 distributed through. So x times x squared is x cubed. X times negative 2x is negative 2x squared. X times negative 1 is negative 1x. And all there's left to do is take that negative 2 and distribute it through. Negative 2 times x squared is negative 2x squared. Negative 2 times negative 2x is positive 4x. And negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Again, going to vertically add and subtract down, so I have an x cubed minus 4x squared plus 3x plus 2. So that was taking zeros and changing them back to a polynomial. All it is just a whole lot of multiplication.